I'm Barry Maxwell, and we'll be discussing Israel's war for independence in 1948 for my History 225 Middle East class. So first, an overview. Reminder that the British authorities leave the mandate that they had been given by the League of Nations in 15 May 1948, thus ending all outside legal authority over the area of Palestine, essentially leaving it up for grabs. Israel, in the area that it controls at the time, declares itself a state on that day. And the day after, forces from Arab countries, mostly Egypt and Jordan, although some others send forces, invade various parts of Palestine, hoping to grab all the free land they can. The Israelis, who are seemingly outnumbered and out-equipped, nonetheless survive and even prevail, the reason for which we'll look at in a bit, holding on to most of Palestine, with Egypt in control of the small Gaza Strip, which is about the size of the city of Bellingham, and Jordan in control of what's known as the West Bank on the western side of the Jordan River, holding on to an area about the size of Whatcom County, which also includes the crucial city of Jerusalem, at least the eastern half, as well as the historic Old City within the original walls from the Ottoman Empire. And the local Palestinians don't wind up with much of anything out of all this, except being subject to other people's rule. And this conflict ends with ceasefires and no actual peace treaties for a long time, until finally 1979 when Egypt agrees to make peace, and 1994 with Jordan. And the other Arab countries either still technically at war or at least not recognizing Israel as a sovereign nation. So, why did the Arabs lose this conflict? They appeared to be united, but in fact were in considerable disarray. Had what appeared to be sizable armies, even more sizable populations, much more than the very smaller Israel. But personal rivalries between the leaders, King Farouk in Egypt, King Abdullah in Jordan especially, all in competition for leadership within the Arab world that has now emerged out of mostly out of colonialism from Britain and the French, with Syria competing as well. And so because they're actually more concerned about each other in the competition than they are about the Israelis' foes, they don't do much to combine their forces to attack the Israelis at the same time, which your defender is exactly what you want. Supply lines very tough, long distances over a very harsh desert terrain, few roads. It's about the distance between Egypt's capital city of Cairo and Palestine, where the war was going on, as it is from Portland, Oregon, up to Bellingham. Long way. And Baghdad's almost 3 times as way as the capital city of Iraq. The Arabs have comparatively larger forces, significantly larger, and they have, in many cases, tanks, airplanes, artillery, the engines of modern warfare. But they're poorly trained, especially in combined arms warfare, which is the business of being able to use your infantry, your tanks, your airplanes, your artillery, all at the same time in the right places and then the right coordinated usages. Which is very hard to do. You got to know what you're doing. You got to practice it, or it doesn't work well, and it doesn't for them. They often use them one at a time, which the Israelis are able to take advantage of, defeating them piece by piece. Also, the Arab armies are predominantly designed more for population control of their own peoples than they are for invading other places, which is a very different skill set. And because of that need to keep the populations in check, none of these Arab countries could commit their entire forces. So what they actually are able to put in the field against the Israelis is a fraction of their entire force. Add to this, none of these Arab armies have any recent battle experience. They all sat out World War II, and the difference between practice and reality is huge when it comes to land combat. And finally, as invaders, they don't have the home court advantage. They're fighting in strange areas over long distances, and they're far less committed to winning than the defenders are, who are wagering their own homeland, which is a big reason why the Israelis win. They're working off of what's called interior lines, able to concentrate their forces against wherever the Arabs are attacking. And we're calling that the Arabs cooperated in this by not all attacking from multiple sides at the same time. Israelis have very short supply lines, and because they're fighting for their own survival, everything's at stake, and everybody's committed to the defense. Don't have to hold anything back. And they know the local terrain. In some cases, they're fighting where they lived, and if they're not, at least places that they've visited and know fairly well. They also get some outside help, more than the others. While the Israelis don't get much help from the Americans, who are concerned about being involved and had to play up to official arms embargoes, the Soviet Union, communist in nature, is hoping to win favor from the socialist labor faction and allow their ally Czechoslovakia to supply Israel with a rather significant amount of small arms and ammunition. And some 30,000 Jews or so had served with the British military during World War II, and so they bring considerable battle experience to this war, unlike the Arabs. And the Israeli force, starting out somewhat smaller than the Arabs, grows significantly as immigrants flow in from Europe. The British had been preventing this, but they're gone now, so it's pretty much anybody that wants to move to Israel that's Jewish is allowed to do so. And they, while not all of these are well-trained soldiers, they're still shortly outnumber the Arab committed forces. So, the flow of battle. On the left, you can see Palestine, and in yellow is the areas that the Israelis held going into this battle with the Arab states, having prevailed against local Arab forces in a lot of cases. The Arab militaries make some initial gains, either coming into areas that were not under Israeli control or pushing back lightly held areas in the opening stages in late May and early June. With the ceasefire from the UN, however, the Israelis are able to rearm and push back once the ceasefire ends, and are able, looking at the map on the right, to take significant areas, pushing back the Arab armies or local Palestinian Arab forces in many cases. And you can see how it plays out through the end of 1948, with the Israelis holding on to a lot more than they had to start with, although not all of Palestine. With some United Nations, especially American help, are able to work out ceasefires with the Egyptians and the Jordanians, leaving the Jordanians in control of areas of the West Bank, as shown here. Again, this area, kind of sort of the kidney bean shaped thing around Jerusalem, which is right there, and then the Egyptian-controlled Gaza Strip right there. And these are the borders that come to be recognized as Israel's borders by the United Nations, Europe, the United States, and are still, for most other countries in the world, actually all, are the recognized borders of Israel, not the areas that Israel has taken on since then. One exception being those Arab countries that have not yet recognized Israel at all, which is most of them. Okay, thanks. And the aftermath, again, Israel recognized as a UN member. Arabs retaliate by not recognizing Israel, begin a boycott of Israel economically, don't trade with Israel, don't sell to it. And Egypt soon thereafter closes the Suez Canal and the Gulf of Aqaba to Israeli shipping, Gulf of Aqaba being south of Israel. More about that in coming lectures. However, the Arabs don't come off looking too well out of this. Their military shown up as weak. Everyone wonders why they couldn't take on what should have been, they thought, an easy battle against what appeared to be the weak Israelis. Egypt's army humiliated, as you know from previous discussions. King Farouk is ousted in a coup led by his army, angry at how they felt they were led into this defeat that they don't think should have happened. Jordan's King Abdullah, who army had fought fairly well, but Palestinians felt betrayed by him because he doesn't fight harder to win them a homeland. And in fact, it comes out that he'd been willing to work out a deal with the Israelis. Nonetheless, is assassinated by one of many disgruntled Palestinians, allowing his grandson eventually to take over, who becomes the long-serving King Hussein, about who we'll see much in the documentaries until he dies of cancer in about 1999 or 2000, I believe. Syria, only recently let loose by the French in 1945, still unstable, and this sort of pushes them over the edge. You get numerous coups and lots of instability there for years thereafter. And the Palestinians probably fare worst out of all this, primarily a refugee people under the control of others. Don't attempt a government exile, but it's not really recognized and effectual by much of anybody, Arabs included. And for various reasons, the Arabs are not willing to declare the existing Palestinian territories of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank as a nation. They're contending that all of Palestine is their nation, and don't want to give up on the parts that Israel took over. Now, thank you.